I was sitting at a cafe minding my own business when he walked through the door. Ryan, my ex, looking like a man who'd just been run over by a truck. And let me tell you, I wasn't exactly thrilled to see him again. But as he stood there, awkwardly shifting on his feet, his eyes pleading for attention, I knew something was about to change. You see, this wasn't just any run-in with an ex. No, this was the moment I realized that he didn't leave me just to find someone better. He left because he never realized what he had until it was gone. And when he came crawling back, I did something unthinkable, something he never saw coming. Now you're probably wondering, why would anyone even give someone like that a second chance? Well, hold on tight because the story of how I turned the tables might just surprise you. Before we start, type 1 if you've ever dreamed of getting revenge but never got the chance. No judgment here. And hit that subscribe button. We don't let betrayal slide around here, not even from people who don't subscribe. Let's continue. My name is Sarah. I'm 35 and I work as a creative director for a marketing firm in downtown Chicago. On the outside, everything seemed perfect. I had a job I loved, friends who adored me, and a city that constantly buzzed with new opportunities. But when it came to my personal life, I'd been stuck in a rut for 7 years, 7 years with Ryan, who I thought was the one. Ryan and I met during college. He was funny, charming, and a bit mysterious, everything I thought I needed. We moved in together shortly after graduation, and things seemed to fall into place. But as with most relationships, the glitter began to fade as the years went by. I'm not going to lie, the last year of our relationship wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt like I was giving more than I was getting back. But I had invested so much time and energy into this relationship, I convinced myself that things would get better. That's what you do, right? You hang on. So when Ryan left me for Tiffany, someone younger, someone more carefree, well, let's just say I wasn't ready for that gut punch. Tiffany worked at the same company as Ryan, and she was everything I wasn't. Naive, unpredictable, and seemingly the complete opposite of everything I had tried to be. So here I was, 35, trying to figure out who I was outside of Ryan. Who was I really? It was a question I hadn't dared ask until the day he left. And believe me, I had to learn how to live for me, something I hadn't done in a long time. I had no idea what was coming next, but one thing was certain. My life was about to change in a way I never expected. It all started on a random Tuesday, the kind of day that usually blends into the background. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through the apartment windows. Ryan and I had just finished dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and wine. We'd been coasting for a while, the conversations growing quieter, the moments between us feeling more like habits than real connection. But even then, I didn't see it coming. He sat across from me at the table, stirring his wine absent-mindedly, his face unreadable. At first, I thought maybe he was just tired or stressed about work. He had been a little off lately, but we all get like that sometimes, right? But then he looked up and I saw it. The look in his eyes wasn't the kind I was used to. It wasn't love or affection or even frustration. It was something else. "Sarah," he said, voice shaky like he was trying to hold back something. "I think we need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. It's funny how a simple sentence can stop time. I put my fork down, and for a split second I thought maybe he's just having a moment. Maybe he's thinking about our future, how we've both been drifting. But the words that came next shattered every ounce of hope I had left. "I've been seeing someone else. Her name's Tiffany. I'm in love with her, and I think it's time we end things." The room went quiet. I stared at him, frozen, the words replaying over and over in my head like a cruel joke. Tiffany, another woman. He was leaving me for someone else. It felt like someone had just yanked the ground out from beneath me. All I could do was nod, unable to speak, the weight of his words sinking in. I wish I could say I handled it with grace, but I didn't. Instead, I walked out of the room and into the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. I was a mess. He didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye when he said it. It felt like a bad dream, and all I wanted was for it to end. But this was real. Ryan was gone. The first few weeks after Ryan left were tough, but I wasn't about to let him see me wallowing. Mia, my best friend, didn't let me off the hook, though. One night, she plopped down on my couch, tossed a glass of wine in my direction, and grinned. "You still thinking about him?" I frowned. "Of course I am. He dumped me for another woman, Mia. How do you expect me to just forget that?" She rolled her eyes. "You're too good for him. It's his loss, and you've been wallowing long enough. Time to move on. Maybe start living for you." She was right. I didn't need him to be whole. So I started putting my energy into myself, my career, my hobbies, and hitting the gym. 6 months later, I was in a much better place, feeling stronger and more like myself than I had in years. Then one day, I walked into my favorite coffee shop and saw him, Ryan, standing there looking like he'd just been run over by a truck. He looked miserable, and I'll admit, it felt good to see him like that. When he noticed me, his face drained of color. "Sarah," he said, forcing a smile. "Hey." I smirked. "You okay, Ryan? You look terrible." "Yeah, life's been rough," he admitted. "I thought you and Tiffany were living the dream," I teased. His face twitched. "Yeah, that didn't work out. I've been thinking a lot about us." "You know what, Ryan?" I crossed my arms. "I'm actually happy you're miserable. I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen." He flinched. "I messed up, Sarah. I miss you. You really think you can just waltz back into my life after everything?" I raised an eyebrow. "I don't expect you to take me back, but can we talk?" I shook my head, fighting a smile. "No, thanks. Not my problem anymore." And with that, I walked out. Ryan had barely been out of my life for 6 months, but when he reached out, I'll admit, I wasn't completely unaffected. It started with a simple text. "Hey, can we talk?" I really messed up. I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes, the words blurring in front of me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, delete it, block him, pretend like this was some kind of bad dream I could wake up from. But the other part of me, the curious, slightly nostalgic part, wondered if he was really sorry, if he truly realized what he lost. So I did what any woman would do in my shoes. I called Mia. I needed her take on it. After all, she had been my sounding board for years. When I picked up the phone, her voice was filled with that familiar mix of sarcasm and concern. "You're not really thinking of meeting him, are you?" Mia said, her voice practically dripping with disbelief. "I don't know," I replied, twirling my pen in circles on my desk, the sound a comforting rhythm. "He says he messed up. He wants to talk. I'm just curious." "Curious about what?" "His reasons for being an idiot. How you're supposed to fix his life now that it's a dumpster fire?" Mia's tone was sharp, and she didn't even wait for me to respond before continuing. "You're not some kind of charity, Sarah. Stop giving him chances to make you feel small." She had a point. The last thing I wanted was to be that person who let her ex walk back into her life like nothing had happened. I was no one's backup option. But the other part of me, the curious, hopeful part, was telling me to hear him out, to at least find out if he was genuine. So I agreed. We set up a time to meet at a cafe somewhere neutral. Ryan was on time, which was an immediate sign that he was serious. When I saw him, the first thing I noticed was how different he looked. Gone were the confident, cocky traits that had once charmed me. Instead, he was deflated. He stood awkwardly by the door, fidgeting with his sleeves as I walked up to him. The man I once knew was practically gone. In his place was this version who looked like he'd been through hell. "Sarah," he said, voice tentative, "you look good." He offered a weak smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I raised an eyebrow. "You too. I can tell you've been doing, well, something. You seem different." He laughed nervously. "Yeah, well, Tiffany and I didn't work out. I know I messed up big time." I leaned back in my chair and studied him. "Tell me about it," I said coolly, crossing my arms. I wasn't going to let him off easy. No more playing the poor, misunderstood Ryan game. He sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Tiffany, she wasn't who I thought she was, and when things ended I realized, I made a huge mistake. You were always there for me, Sarah. You were my person." The word "were" hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let him see that. I wasn't the same person who had begged him to stay. I was stronger now, and I wasn't going to fall into his manipulative trap. "I'm sure you've been thinking about it a lot," I replied sarcastically, rolling my eyes. Funny how people only realize what they had once they lose it. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I get it, I really get it. And I'm not asking you to take me back. I just want closure. I guess I just want you to know how much I regret everything." I stared at him for a long moment, my expression unreadable. A part of me wanted to ask him how he thought he could just walk in and get closure when I was the one who'd been blindsided, dumped without warning. But instead, I just nodded. "You want closure?" I asked. "Then listen. This isn't about what you lost, it's about what I gained." He looked at me confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, after you left, I had to figure out who I was without you. I had to rebuild. I'm not the girl you left behind. I don't need you to make me whole again, Ryan." There was a sharpness in my voice that I hadn't anticipated, but it felt good to say it, to stand my ground. "You don't need me?" he asked, his eyes narrowing as though he couldn't quite believe it. "Exactly," I replied. "I needed you at one point, yes. But I realized that the only person I ever truly needed was myself. I've spent months getting to know me again, and you know what? I'm actually happy now. More than I've ever been. Ryan's face darkened as he processed my words. The guilt was written all over him, but it was too late. This wasn't a love story that could be rewritten. Don't you think you're being a little harsh? He muttered, his voice strained. No, I said flatly. I think I'm being honest, and you're lucky I'm even sitting here listening to you. But that's where it ends. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. You're not going to get what you want from me, Ryan. You can't just come back into my life after everything. I'm not the woman you left behind. And you're not the man I need now. For a moment, he looked like he was going to argue, but then he just sighed, deflating even more. I guess I deserve that. Yeah, you do, I said, standing up to leave. Now go figure out your own life, because I'm done doing it for you. The moment I sat down across from Ryan, I felt a strange calm wash over me. He had texted the night before, saying he'd made a huge mistake and needed to talk. Part of me wanted to ignore him completely. But another part of me, the one that had spent too many sleepless nights wondering where I went wrong, needed to hear him out. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I knew I wasn't going to let him off the hook easily. Ryan was different this time. Gone was the confident man who had left me for someone else. The man sitting across from me now was broken, defeated, and almost unrecognizable. He shifted uneasily in his chair, avoiding my gaze. Sarah, he started, his voice shaky. I really messed up. I thought Tiffany was the answer, but she wasn't. I realize now what I had with you was everything I wanted. I didn't respond immediately. I needed a moment to process what he had just said. A part of me wanted to say I told you so, but I bit my tongue. I had been the one left behind after all. He was the one who needed me now. So you're sorry, I finally said, leaning forward, raising an eyebrow. You left me for her, Ryan. How exactly does that work? And now you want me to feel sorry for you because things didn't go the way you expected. Ryan looked down at his coffee, his fingers tapping the cup nervously. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness and I'm not asking for it, but I want you to know how much I regret everything, how much I miss us. I felt a small, bitter laugh rise in my throat. You regret it now, after everything. You didn't regret it when you packed up your stuff and left without so much as an explanation. I'm not sure what you want from me here, Ryan, but it isn't happening. His face flushed red, and for a moment he looked like he might argue, but then he seemed to deflate. I don't expect anything from you, he said quietly, almost to himself. I just need you to know that I've learned my lesson, and that I'm truly sorry. I studied him for a moment, watching the man who had once been my everything, now just a shell of the person I had loved. You're sorry, funny, I don't really feel that sorry for you. Ryan's eyes widened and I could see the hurt flash across his face. I was wrong, I know that. I shrugged nonchalantly. It's not about being wrong. It's about realizing that what we had is gone. I don't need your apology to move on. There was a pause and I could feel the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off before he could continue. You don't get to just walk in here and expect me to forgive you. You don't get to expect anything from me. I've spent the last few months finding myself again, and I'm not going to let you mess that up. He looked at me with a mix of frustration and disbelief. So that's it, you're just going to walk away from this. I stood up slowly, letting my words sink in. Yes, Ryan, I'm walking away from you, from us. I'm done being the one who holds everything together. I'm not your emotional safety net anymore. I turned to walk away, feeling a surge of power. I hadn't expected it to feel this good to finally take control. Ryan stayed silent, staring after me, but I didn't look back. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking for his validation. I didn't need his apology to move on. Ryan reached out again, and this time I knew I couldn't ignore it. Not because I wanted to hear what he had to say, but because I needed closure, real closure. The kind that didn't involve me picking up the pieces of his broken heart or making him feel better about his choices. I had to be sure that I was done with him, that I could move on without any lingering doubts. We met again at the same cafe, the one where everything had started to unravel. He was already there when I walked in, sitting at a corner table, nervously checking his phone. It was almost like he was trying to prove something, perhaps that he was sincere this time, that he wasn't the same guy who had walked away without a second thought. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. When he saw me, his face softened and he stood up as if to greet me. But there was hesitation in his eyes. He wasn't sure what kind of reception he would get from me. I wasn't the same woman he had left behind. Hey, Sarah, he said quietly, his voice a little too eager. Thanks for meeting me. I nodded, taking a seat across from him. Let's get this over with, I replied flatly. He sighed, running his hand through his hair before speaking again. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything. I know I screwed up, I should have never left. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I realize now that I let something good slip away. I tried not to roll my eyes. I wasn't in the mood for any more of his self-pity. You didn't just let something slip away, Ryan. You left. You didn't fight for what we had. You didn't even give me a chance to explain anything. You just walked out, and now you expect me to feel sorry for you. His face dropped, and for a moment I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But then I remembered everything. The pain, the sleepless nights, the doubt that crept into my mind as I questioned whether I was the one who had messed up. And I realized something. I wasn't that woman anymore. I had spent too long waiting for someone else to fix my heart. It was time to fix it myself. I didn't think it through, Ryan said, his voice lower now. I get that you're angry, but I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need to know that you're okay, that you're not still hurting because of me. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms, and stared at him for a moment. You think I'm still hurting over you? Seriously, that's rich. I spent months trying to heal, trying to put myself back together. And you know what? I did it, all on my own. I don't need your apology to move on, Ryan. He shifted in his seat, looking uncomfortable. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I miss you, Sarah. I miss what we had. I've been thinking about you, about how good things were. I messed up, but I'm ready to make things right. I almost laughed. Make things right. You can't just walk back into my life because you miss me, Ryan. You don't get to undo everything that's happened. You don't get to make up for what you did by suddenly showing up and telling me you miss me. I'm not some consolation prize. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. You didn't think about me when you were with Tiffany, did you? You didn't think about me when you walked away. And now, after everything, you think I'm just supposed to forget all of that because you miss me. His face was a mixture of regret and frustration. He had expected me to jump at the chance to forgive him, to welcome him back into my life with open arms. But I wasn't that woman. I wasn't going to play the part of the forgiving ex who got her heart broken only to put it all back together again just for him. I'm not asking you to take me back, Ryan said, his voice quieter now. I just want to know that you're not still angry at me, that I didn't completely destroy whatever we had. You didn't just destroy it, Ryan, I said, my voice steady. You made a choice, you left, and I had to learn to live without you. I had to rebuild myself, and you know what? I'm stronger for it. I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not going to pretend like you didn't hurt me. I'm not going to pretend that we can just pick up where we left off, because we can't. You made sure of that. Ryan looked at me, his eyes searching mine as though he was trying to find some hint that I still cared. But there was nothing there. I wasn't the same woman who had begged him to stay. I wasn't the same woman who had been afraid of losing him, and I wasn't going to let him back in. I'm done waiting for you to figure it out, I said, standing up slowly. I've waited long enough, and now I'm done. You don't get to come back and fix everything with a few words. You don't get to expect me to welcome you with open arms just because you're sorry. Ryan opened his mouth to say something, but I stopped him. You had your chance, Ryan. And now I'm moving on. With that, I turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving him behind. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. I was free. I had finally let go. A month passed after Ryan's last attempt to win me back, and I thought I was done. I had finally moved on, truly convinced that I could close that chapter for good. But then I received the email. The subject line was simple. We need to talk. I almost deleted it. It was everything I had promised myself I wouldn't do again, go back, listen to him, get sucked back into his mess. But something nagged at me. Was I really just going to let this go unanswered? Was I really going to pretend like the last few months hadn't happened? I clicked it open. It was short, just a few lines asking me to meet him. He said he had something important to say. There was no explanation, no apology. Just an invitation. I sighed, resisting the temptation to ignore it. There was a part of me that needed closure, real closure. Not for him, but for me. Was I truly done? Or was there still something unresolved between us? So, against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at the same cafe where we'd had our last confrontation. It was almost poetic, how everything seemed to come full circle. When I walked in, Ryan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking anxious. But this time, he wasn't the confident, cocky guy I remembered. He was different, softer, almost vulnerable. Sarah, thanks for coming, he said, his voice low. I know I messed up. I didn't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to hear me out. I took a seat, arms crossed, staring at him with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Go ahead, I said, I'm listening. I've been seeing a therapist, Ryan began, clearly trying to find the right words. And I realized something. The real issue wasn't Tiffany, it wasn't you, it was me. I was afraid. Afraid of commitment, afraid of getting hurt, afraid of truly being with someone who loved me. I pushed you away because I was scared of being vulnerable. The words hit me like a wave, but I didn't flinch. You think this is going to make everything better? I asked, my voice steady. You think I'm just going to forget how you walked out on me? He looked down, his voice quieter now. I know it's a lot to ask, and I'm not asking for you to take me back, but I'm asking for your understanding. I'm not the same person who left you. I've changed. I studied him for a moment, weighing his words. Was this genuine? Or was he just looking for validation, some sort of approval for his self-improvement? I shook my head, leaning back in my chair. You don't get to come in here and ask for my understanding, Ryan. You don't get to rewrite the past just because you've had some self-realization. His face fell. I know I can't change what happened, but I need you to know that I regret it. I regret everything. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I felt a strange mix of pity and anger. I had spent so long trying to heal, trying to move on, and now he was here, telling me that he regretted it all. That somehow his regret was supposed to fix everything. You know what's the worst part? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence. You didn't regret it when you left. You didn't think about me when you made that choice. You only regret it because you're alone now, because things didn't work out the way you wanted. But I'm not your second chance. I'm not here to fix you. Ryan opened his mouth to say something, but I held up a hand. You don't get to come in here, tell me you've learned something, and expect me to just forgive you. I spent months putting myself back together, and I'm not about to let you undo all of that. I stood up, feeling a surge of strength I hadn't felt before. I've moved on, Ryan. I don't need your apology or your validation. I'm not the person you left behind. And I'm certainly not the person you think you can just walk back into. He stared at me, his face a mixture of disbelief and frustration, but I didn't feel sorry for him. You had your chance, I said firmly, and now I'm done. I turned and walked away, my steps steady, my heart lighter than it had been in a long time. Ryan didn't stop me, didn't follow me. For the first time in months, I knew I had made the right decision. I was finally free. The days after our last meeting were quiet, but the silence felt different. It wasn't the empty, lonely silence I'd felt when Ryan first left. This time, it was the kind of silence that came with peace, the kind that made me realize I had nothing left to prove to anyone, not to him, not to myself. But even though I was sure I'd done the right thing by walking away, there was still a lingering uncertainty that I couldn't shake. Had I really let go? Or was I just fooling myself? It wasn't until I ran into Ryan again that I realized how much I still had to process. I was leaving work one evening, my mind on everything but him, when I turned the corner and saw him standing there, waiting. He looked different this time, not broken but too calm, as if he had already made peace with everything and wanted me to do the same. Sarah, he said quietly, stepping closer. Can we talk? My stomach churned. I didn't want to go through this again. I didn't want to have the same conversation we'd already had 100 times. But there was a part of me that still needed to know if I was truly done. So, I nodded. We found a quiet spot in the park near my building. The sun was setting, casting a soft glow over everything, and for a moment I almost forgot how much I had grown, how far I had come. I've been thinking, he started, his voice steady, about everything, about us, and I think you're right. I've wasted so much time and I can't keep living in the past. I braced myself, waiting for the usual I'm sorry spiel, the pleas for another chance. But this time there was something different in his eyes, closure, not just for him, but for both of us. And I realized in that moment that I no longer needed him to give me that. The crisis wasn't in whether I'd let him back in, it was realizing that I had already done the hardest part, letting go. Ryan stood there, waiting for some sign from me that I would fall back into old habits, that I would listen to his words and let him back into my life. I could see the hope in his eyes, but it wasn't the same desperate, pleading look from before. It was different now, calm, almost resigned. Maybe he had finally come to terms with the fact that I had moved on. But here's the thing, I had. And not in the way I expected. There was no dramatic moment, no big reveal. It was more like the slow burn of a fire that finally consumes everything until only the embers remain, warm but no longer a threat. I took a deep breath, standing my ground. Ryan, I began, my voice calm but steady, I know you want closure. I know you want me to tell you that it's all okay, that we can go back to what we had, but it's not like that anymore. His face softened, like he already knew the words I was going to say. I don't expect you to forgive me, Sarah. I just needed you to know that I've changed. I'm not the man I was. I nodded slowly, my eyes fixed on his. I know, and I'm proud of you for that, but you don't get to rewrite our story. You don't get to come in and fix everything just because you're sorry. That's not how this works. For a moment, there was silence. No words between us, just the sound of the wind rustling the leaves around us. I realized then that I had already forgiven him, not for him, but for me. I didn't need his apology, I didn't need his validation. I'm okay, Ryan, I said quietly but with certainty. I'm more than okay. And that's something I needed to learn on my own. I don't need you to complete me. I'm already whole. Ryan gave me one last look, and without a word he turned and walked away. I didn't chase him, I didn't look back. And as I stood there watching him disappear into the distance, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. I had finally found my resolution, and it didn't come from him. It came from me. I had let go, completely. And that, in itself, was the victory. The days that followed felt like a fresh start, a new chapter I hadn't expected to write. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to give me permission to move forward. I had learned to stand on my own, and I wasn't about to look back. The weight of Ryan's memory, the heartbreak, the doubt, the longing, finally began to fade, replaced by a quiet peace I hadn't known I was capable of. I threw myself into the things I had put on the back burner for so long. I painted again, something I hadn't done in ages, feeling the brush glide over the canvas like a whisper of my soul. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, laughed more, and felt the kind of joy I had almost forgotten existed. The world around me, once clouded by sorrow, now felt alive with possibility. Then one evening, as I sat on the couch reading a book, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Mia. You good? I feel like I haven't seen you this happy in ages. I smiled to myself, typing back, I am. I finally feel like I'm enough, just as I am. That's when I realized something. Happiness had always been within reach, it was just waiting for me to choose it. I didn't need anyone else's approval. I was enough on my own. And that, above all, was the most liberating thing I could have ever discovered. Ryan was a part of my past, but he wasn't my future. I was finally living for me, and for the first time in a long while I felt truly free.